February 1959, deep within the frozen Ural Mountains. 9 experienced hikers vanished. Weeks later, rescuers discovered their abandoned tent. It had been cut open. From the inside, footprints in the snow suggested the group had fled into the darkness. Some were barefoot, some wore only socks, one by one. Their bodies were found scattered across the mountainside. Several had suffered catastrophic injuries, yet no clear explanation was ever given. More than 60 years later, the Dyatlov Pass Incident remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in modern history. What happened on that mountain? And why did 9 experienced hikers abandon their shelter? In the middle of a deadly winter night, the winter of 1959, in the Soviet Union, long-distance mountain expeditions were considered a test of endurance, skill, and determination. For students at the Ural Polytechnic Institute, such journeys were both a challenge and an adventure. Among them was 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov, a talented engineering student, an experienced mountaineer, and a respected leader among his peers. Dyatlov had organized an ambitious expedition across the northern Ural Mountains. The objective was to reach Mount Otorten, a remote peak located deep within one of the most unforgiving wilderness regions in the Soviet Union. The route was classified as Category 3, the highest level of difficulty at the time for the members of the expedition. This was not an extraordinary mission. It was simply another challenge, another adventure, one they fully expected to survive. On January 23, 1959, the expedition finally began. The group departed from Sverdlovsk by train. Over the following days, they traveled deeper and deeper into the remote northern Ural region. Despite the freezing temperatures, morale remained high. Photographs recovered from their cameras show a group full of energy, laughing, joking, and enjoying the adventure ahead. But only a few days into the journey, the expedition suffered its first setback. One member was forced to turn back. Yuri Yudin had been struggling with chronic health problems for years. Severe pain in his back and legs made it impossible for him to continue. Reluctantly, Yudin said goodbye to his friends. He expected to see them again within a few weeks. He never did. 9 people continued into the mountains. 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov was the leader of the expedition, a gifted engineering student and a highly respected mountaineer. 22-year-old Zinaida Kolmogorova was known for her energy and optimism. Friends described her as kind, determined, and impossible to discourage. 20-year-old Lyudmila Dubanina was among the strongest personalities in the group, fearless, independent, and exceptionally resilient. 23-year-old Rustem Slobodin was one of the team's finest athletes, calm, reliable, and physically outstanding. 21-year-old Yuri Doroshenko was adventurous and courageous. Years earlier, he had reportedly fought off a bear during another expedition. 23-year-old Georgy Krivonishenko was the joker of the group, the one who kept spirits high, even in the harshest conditions. 24-year-old Alexander Kolovatov was quiet and highly intelligent, a reserved young man with a brilliant academic future. 38-year-old Semyon Zolotaryov was different, older than the others, a decorated World War II veteran, and perhaps the most mysterious member of the expedition. Finally, 23-year-old Nikolai Thibault Brignol, athletic, popular, and deeply admired by his friends. Together, they were more than an expedition. They were friends, and within days, every one of them would be dead. Over the following days, the group continued deeper into the northern Ural Mountains. Each day, they recorded their progress in diaries. They photographed the landscape and documented the expedition with remarkable detail. Despite freezing temperatures and increasingly difficult terrain, there was little sign that anything was wrong. On January 31st, the hikers reached the edge of the highlands. There, they built a supply cache known as a lapaz. Food, equipment, and extra supplies were carefully stored for the return journey. The next morning, they left the forest behind and began their final ascent. They were now heading toward Kolatshakal, a mountain whose name in the Mansi language is often translated as Dead Mountain. On February 1st, 1959, the group reached the eastern slope of Kolatshakal. Their original plan had been to cross the mountain and descend into the forest before nightfall, but strong winds, poor visibility, and worsening weather forced them to stop. Rather than losing altitude, Igor Dyatlov made a decision. The group pitched their tent directly on the exposed mountainside. It was a dangerous location, far from the protection of the forest, completely exposed to the freezing wind. It would be the last decision they would ever make. That evening, the 9 hikers prepared dinner, wrote in their diaries, adjusted their equipment, and settled into their sleeping bags. No one knows what happened next. The group was expected to return on February 12th. When no message arrived, few people were initially concerned. Delays were common during winter expeditions, but as the days passed, concern slowly turned into alarm. Families began demanding answers. Friends contacted the Institute, and on February 20th, a large search operation was finally organized. Volunteers, experienced mountaineers, students, soldiers, and local Mansi hunters spread across the frozen wilderness. The search covered hundreds of square kilometers. Day after day, there was nothing. No tracks, no campfires, no sign that the group had ever been there. Then, on February 26th, everything changed. High on the eastern slope of Kolatshakal, searchers spotted something barely visible beneath the snow. It was the tent, partially collapsed, almost completely buried. As they approached, the scene became even stranger. One side of the canvas had been slashed open, not from the outside, but from within. Inside the tent, most of their boots remained, heavy winter clothing, food, personal belongings, cameras, diaries, everything they would have needed to survive. It looked as though the group had fled in extreme haste, leaving behind nearly everything. At that moment, the rescuers still believed the hikers might somehow be alive. They had no idea they were standing at the beginning of one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the 20th century. The rescuers began examining the area around the tent. What they found raised even more questions. A series of footprints led away from the campsite. Some had been left by people wearing boots. Others appeared to have been made by bare feet or by hikers wearing only socks. The tracks continued downhill toward the edge of the forest for nearly 1.5 kilometers. Remarkably, the footprints showed no signs of panic. They were walking, not running. Whatever had forced them to leave the tent had not immediately caused chaos. The trail ended at the base of a giant Siberian cedar. There, the rescuers made their first tragic discovery: the bodies of Yuri Doroshenko and Georgy Krivonishenko lay beneath the tree. Both were barefoot, lightly dressed, and positioned beside the remains of a small fire. The branches high above them were broken, as though someone had climbed the tree, searching or perhaps trying to escape something hidden below. Between the cedar and the abandoned tent, 3 more bodies were found: Igor Dyatlov, Zenaida Kolmogorova, and Rustem Slobodin. Each of them appeared to be heading back toward the tent, as if they had tried to return. But the mystery was far from over. 4 members of the expedition were still missing: Alexander Kolevatov, Lyudmila Dubinina, Semyon Zolotaryov, and Nikolai Thibault Brignol. Search teams combed the mountain for weeks, day after day. They found nothing. Winter slowly gave way to spring. Snow began to melt. Rivers started flowing beneath the ice. Only in May, more than 3 months after the tragedy, did the final discovery come. Deep inside a ravine, hidden beneath several meters of snow, the last 4 bodies were finally found. And what investigators saw changed the entire case. The autopsy reports raised even more questions. The first 5 victims had died primarily from hypothermia, but the last 4 told a very different story. Lyudmila Dubinina had suffered devastating chest injuries. Several ribs were broken with tremendous force, yet the skin showed remarkably little external damage. Semyon Zolotaryov also suffered multiple rib fractures. Nikolai Thibault Brignol had sustained a severe skull fracture. Alexander Kolevatov showed injuries to his neck, but no comparable fatal blunt trauma. Some forensic experts later compared the pattern of these internal injuries to the kind of high-energy blunt force trauma seen in events such as vehicle collisions. Yet investigators found no evidence of another person being present, no signs of a violent struggle, and no additional footprints around the ravine. One detail became especially controversial. Lyudmila Dubinina's tongue was missing, along with parts of her lips, soft facial tissue, and sections of her eyes. However, the official investigation never determined that these injuries occurred before death. Several forensic experts have suggested that the loss of soft tissue was consistent with post-mortem decomposition and prolonged exposure to flowing water beneath the snow. Even so, the combination of devastating internal injuries and the absence of significant external wounds remains one of the most debated aspects of the Dyatlov Pass Incident. By the spring of 1959, all 9 members of the Dyatlov expedition had been found. The investigation continued for several months. Detectives, military officials, and forensic experts examined every piece of evidence. They studied the campsite, the footprints, the injuries, and every available witness statement. Yet no explanation could account for everything they had discovered. In May 1959, the investigation was officially closed. Its final conclusion stated that the group had died because of an unknown compelling natural force. The report never explained what that force actually was. No crime was officially identified, and many questions remained unanswered. Much of the case was later archived, leaving generations of researchers searching for answers. For decades, Countless theories have attempted to explain the Dyatlov Pass Incident. Some suggested that a powerful avalanche forced the group to flee their tent. Others proposed military weapons tests, secret Soviet experiments, or even infrasound generated by the mountain winds. Some early suspicions focused on the indigenous Mansi people. However, investigators found no evidence linking them to the tragedy. In 2019, Russian authorities reopened the case. After a new investigation, they concluded that a type of snow slab avalanche, combined with extreme weather, was the most likely explanation. In 2021, independent researchers from Switzerland, using advanced computer simulations, reached a similar conclusion. While this theory explains many of the physical injuries and the group's sudden decision to leave the tent, it still does not answer every question, and perhaps that is why, more than 60 years later, the Dyatlov Pass Incident remains one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. More than 6 decades have passed, yet the mountain has never revealed all of its secrets. Perhaps the official explanation is correct. Perhaps some questions will never be answered. The Dyatlov Pass Incident remains a reminder that even in the modern world, there are places where mystery still survives. Thank you for watching. This is Cryptid Archives.